Morning, everybody. Mike's MMA Picks here with your Fight Morning Quick Card Breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMA Oddsbreaker. We're back for UFC 251. Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. 13 fights, so if you're playing DFS, makes for lots of opportunities when it comes to lineup construction. Let's kick things off. I'm going to try to bang this out in about 30 minutes. So first fight of the night, we've got Martin Day taking on Davy Grant. Martin Day coming in at 8,500 over at BetDSI, minus 165, betting favorite. 9-3 record. Hawaiian fighter, loves to strike. Davy Grant, 9-4 record, 7,700 plus 135 underdog. This fight, I'll be honest, I don't put a lot of stock into either fighter. Both fighters have been outside of the octagon for quite some time, and we know that Davy Grant has 8 submission victories on his resume, and that is a possibility. He has the ability to take Martin Day down to the ground. Martin Day, the longer this fight goes, the longer it stays standing, he could potentially run away with this. He's got a 1-inch reach. He lacks the takedown defense. That's a major issue for me. I'm going to roll with the Hawaiian here, Martin Day. This fight is expected to go to a decision. Give me Martin Day to win a close decision here. Next up, we have Vanessa Melo taking on Karol Rosa. Karol Rosa, 9,200 in DraftKings. She's one of your highest priced fighters. I expect low ownership. We also have her coming in at minus 260. She fights out of the same camp as Jessica Andrade. Vanessa Melo, 10-7. One of the reasons I enjoy doing this breakdown show on the morning of the fights is because we get to see weigh-ins, and Vanessa Melo misses weight yet again. She has these tremendous tree trunk legs. I don't know how she even plans, honestly, to make it down to 135 pounds. It's a tough cut for her. $7,000 in DraftKings for Vanessa Melo, plus 210 underdog. Let's cut to the chase here. Karol Rosa is going to come in, look to land volume. Vanessa Melo is built like a tank. She's going to try to close the distance, get a hold of Rosa, put her on her back. Rosa's been submitted in the past, though I'll be honest, the larger octagon here, I think we're going to see Rosa win a volume-based decision. This fight isn't expected to finish. It's expected to go to a decision at minus 300. So give me Karol Rosa to win by decision. Next up, we have Marcin Tybura taking on MikesMMAPicks. MikesMMAPicks, familiar face if you follow PFL closely. Traditionally a light heavyweight. She's coming in on short notice. Looked in shape, but when you weigh in at 223 pounds or so, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage when you're facing large heavyweights. And Grishim's going to be fighting a large heavyweight in Marcin Tybura. Tybura, 7,900 in DraftKings. Believe it or not, he's the underdog. If you look at DraftKings value, at the betting window, he's a minus 125 favorite. Then on the other side of the fight, we've got Grishim. Look at his record. 30 wins, 7 losses, 2 draws, 8,100 in DK plus or minus 105. This is his 40th professional fight. Grishim going to look to stay at range, land. He's going to try to avoid the grappling exchanges. Tybura is going to look to get a hold of Grishim. And I got to be honest, in this fight, I see Tybura with a full camp under his belt, the much larger fighter. He's been in there with killers. Grishim isn't one of these heavy power punchers who should really pose a significant threat. I'm going to be picking Tybura to win this fight. This fight is expected to go to a decision at -120. I think we could see Tybura locking up a submission late in this fight, though the larger octagon is going to be another instance here where we're going to see these fighters look to try to maintain space. So I wouldn't play the fight does not go the distance prop in this matchup. So give me Tybura to win there. Next up, we head to the men's 155-pound division. We've got lightweights here. We've got Leo Santos taking on Roman Bogatov. Bogatov's coming in at 7,400 plus 150 at the betting window. Leo Santos, 40 years of age, 8,800 minus 180. Leo Santos, 11 fight winning streak dating back to 2010. He has fought the who's who. Only problem is he's not very active. I believe he's had 11 fights since 2010. Then you look on the other side of the fight, you've got Bogatov, who's 10-0, undefeated prospect, 29 years of age. So he's not a spring chicken, but one thing that Bogatov brings with him is a relentless pressure. He's got a wrestling game to him, got a bit of a sambo background, and Bogatov is not going to wilt. Leo Santos, minimal output, but what he does throw, he throws with bad intentions, and he's had great success in the past. You look at the Stevie Ray fight, you look at the Kevin Lee fight, there have been others. Deceptively, he's got great hands, but when he throws them, that's the thing. He doesn't throw them often. And if you want to take him to the ground, he's so long on the ground, he's a high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner. Santos could lock up something here. I'm not going to prepare to fade Santos right now. Bogatov could put himself in situations where Santos is able to lock up that submission. That's what I'm going to expect to happen here. This fight is expected to go to a decision at -125, though hard to fade a fighter who has a 17-3-1 record, and we don't see him that often, but when he does fight, he performs. One thing to look out for, though, is if Leo can't get it done down the stretch, I think he does have gas tank issues. But give me Leo Santos to win that fight. Next up, we are headed to the 145-pound division, where we have one of my favorite fighters, Makwan Amirkhani, taking on Danny Henry. Makwan coming in at 8,600, minus 200 at the betting window, which I think, honestly, is a little wide in this case. Then we got Danny Henry, who you could throw the kitchen sink at him, and he typically will keep coming unless you're fighting Dan Ige. 7,600 in DK for Danny Henry, and he is a plus 160 underdog. We saw the fight against Hakeem Dawodu. I don't put much stock into that victory. I think he caught Dawodu early. In this spot, Amirkhani is going to look to grapple heavy. He's a fighter, though, who has fallen in love with his hands. He's a wrestler who's fallen in love with his hands. And we'll get to another instance where that may be the case later on the card. But Makwan spent some time after the Jason Knight fight working on his boxing. Even after the Arnold Allen fight, he's got a very heavy grappling game, can throw one or two strikes, but he does not put combinations together. And he also runs out of gas. I really enjoyed his fight against Shane Burgos. Looked very impressive early, but then, he only has gas tank for about a round and a half. So it depends on how Makwan wants to approach this fight. He has the potential to lock up a submission. This is a guy who helped Conor McGregor throughout the years. You look at Conor's performance against Khabib Nurmagomedov and how he was able to I know he lost that fight, but he didn't look that bad at times, especially trying to stay on his feet. Give me Makwan Amirkhani to win a grappling-heavy fight here, though Danny Henry, very live. If you can't put him out, if this fight ends up getting to the third round, you're probably going to see Makwan Amirkhani huffing and puffing and Danny Henry coming on. So if you're planning on making any live wagers during this card, this may be one of the cases. Give me Makwan to get the win, though. Next up, we head to welterweights where we have a banger on our hands. We've got Zaleski dos Santos taking on Muslim-Salikhov. Salikhov 8,200 minus 135. I've seen Zaleski fight in person a couple of times. Tremendous willpower. He's got the capoeira. He has a jiu-jitsu game. He can get fights to the ground. The problem is in the larger octagon here. And Salikhov, look at his record, 16-2. Tremendous stand-up. Spinning attacks galore. You saw what he did to Nordine Taleb last time out. And I do think Salikhov is live here to land fight-ending strikes. So Zaleski coming in at 8,000 in DK plus 105 at the betting window. 33 years of age for Zaleski. You look at the other side of the fight. Salikhov, he is now 36 years old. He is one of these guys. He's an assassin out there. And you do not want to play the striking game with him. So Zaleski, if he comes in here and really tries to grapple, I think that's how he's got a shot. But the problem is, how does he close that distance? Anytime fighters have tried to close the distance on Salikhov, they've been met with bad intentions on the feet. And that's what I see playing out here. This fight's not expected to go to a decision at minus 125. I see Salikhov getting the finish here. So give me Salikhov for the victory. Next up, we're headed to light heavyweights where we have Volkan Oezdemir taking on Prochazka. Prochazka, 7,800, came over from Ryzen, only 27 years old, 7,800 in DK plus 130 underdog. I expect Prochazka to use his length here, big time. No Time is going to have to really work in this spot. This is a very dangerous fight. You've got a 27-year-old fighter who is on a 10-fight win streak, and Volkan, you go watch that fight against Rakic, and I'll be honest, that was a very, very close matchup. You've got Alexander Rakic, who is still putting his game together, and this is a similar style matchup, although I think Prochazka is much more dangerous in this spot. And you look at the price tags here. This is a fight that I think you're going to want a piece of if you're playing DFS. Oezdemir, 8,400 minus 160. And then on the other side of the fight, Prochazka is a plus 130 underdog. You want to look at inside the distance odds here. This fight isn't expected to go to a decision at minus 175, but somebody's going to drop like a sack of potatoes in this fight. If Oezdemir starts committing to leg kicks, he's going to leave himself open up top to be met with counters. And Prochazka is very live in this spot. I know he's been knocked out in the past, but that was back in 2015. He's fought subpar competition, but you're only as good as the fighters who are in front of you, and he's walked right through many of them. Oezdemir, if he comes out here and fights a slow, methodical, defensive fight, I expect him to get the win. But if he comes out here and wants to get into a firefight, he is playing with fire. And this fight, I think, is lined correctly, as it's a very closely lined fight right now. Odds have closed significantly. I'm gonna just the wealth of experience against better competition. Volkan Oezdemir, I gotta go with the vet here. I think he has the skills, and he's been under the pressure, under the bright lights in the UFC before. But you talk about live dogs. Prochazka is one of them. I'm not counting him out, but I'm going to pick Volkan Oezdemir to get the victory in that spot. Next up, we have the widest lined fight on the card coming up here. We've got Andrade-Namajunas coming in at 9,500 at minus 810 favorite, taking on Paige VanZant. Paige VanZant, 6,700 in DK plus 510 underdog. You look at Paige VanZant, she's had her foot out the door, but she has a Austin Vanderford, who's her husband, in her corner helping her get ready for this this fight. I honestly think that we're going to see both of these fighters end up on the ground. Amanda Ribas is one of those fighters I honestly can get emotional just talking about her fight and her fighting style, because she's very sweet outside of the cage, but once she steps inside the octagon, it's like a switch flips and she turns into this all business ultra competitor. And you watched it against Marcos, and you watched it throughout her career. Now, this is somebody who's been knocked out in the past by Poliana Viana out cold a long time ago, but this fight's up a weight class from her typical competition. So she's fighting up at 125 pounds. I don't want to talk too much about this fight because I do expect Amanda Ribas to win this fight either by submission or TKO. I know this fight is expected to finish ever so slightly at minus 130. But I'm going to be picking Amanda Ribas to win via finish here. Next up, we're headed to the 115-pound division where we have a rematch on our hands. We've got Jessica Andrade taking on Rose-Namajunas. Rose-Namajunas, $9,000 in DK, minus 205 favorite. This fight is, to me, a little bit wide. Jessica Andrade, 20-7 record. She's somebody who's fought at 135 pounds multiple times, has fought big-time competition. 7,200 in DK, plus 165 underdog. I think we're going to see some high ownership on Andrade here, but a few things to consider here. Namajunas, 8-4 overall record, has 2 wins over Joanna, former champion. Jessica Andrade got her lights put out by Weili Zhang and is looking for getting back on the tracks here. You watched the first fight, first 7 minutes. It was a masterpiece put on by Rose Namajunas. And I'll be honest, I put a lot of stock into Rose's success in the hands of Trevor Whitman. I think that if Namajunas can stay at range and pepper Andrade and be on her bicycle for 15 minutes, that's how she gets this done. Though, Andrade has to commit and has to put herself in the fire and has to initiate the grappling. The Kimura defense against the cage, presenting the slams, that's not going to work this time out. And I honestly see Andrade getting to Namajunas at some point in the fight. The physicality is going to rear its ugly head. And at these odds, I give Jessica Andrade a better shot than she's projected. When you look at implied probability here, Andrade could come in here. All she needs to do is get a hold of Namajunas and stick to her like glue. There is a huge strength discrepancy in this matchup. Namajunas, though, is a killer, and she could look out here to continue to do what she did last time and land the heavy strikes and bounce around, stick and move. But give me Andrade to win this fight, either by TKO victory or by decision. I just feel that at some point the physicality is going to become an issue in this spot. And you look back at the way Rose has handled herself. I know when she's in the octagon, she's performed well under pressure, but outside of the octagon, she's broken many times, and she even failed to take the fight against Weili Zhang when she was offered it a few months ago. She wasn't even considering fighting anymore. She was slammed on her head. People call that a fluke. I don't think that was a fluke. That is Jessica Andrade's game. She's a physical fighter, and she is just a brutal savage. So I expect Andrade to come out here and surprise a lot of people and get it done. Get it done again. But I'm not counting Rose out. Rose, if she plays this fight at distance, there's a clear path to victory for her there. So Andrade has to get to her if she wants a chance to win this fight. Next up, we head to the men's 135-pound division, where we have a former champion in Jose Aldo at 145 pounds, dropping down for a second time to take on Petr Yan. Jose Aldo coming in at 6,900 plus 190 at the betting window. Petr Yan, 9,300 minus 235 favorite. I'll be honest, this line is wide from my perspective. If we'll cut to the chase, if you were giving me something like minus 170, minus 180 on Petr Yan, I would be much more apt to play something like that. But in this spot, you're looking at a fighter in Jose Aldo who is at times electric. If he gets a fighter hurt, and he has the ability to do that, if he sees a chink in the armor, he will go after you and throw the kitchen sink at you. That is the way Jose Aldo has the ability to win this fight. He's going to have to empty his clip in the first 2 rounds if he has a chance at winning this bout. If not, look for Petr Yan to turn it on late. I love this matchup. This is the fight to watch from my perspective. I'm going to have the popcorn ready, and we are going to have a whole pot of coffee brewed up for this one. It is so damn good. So, Petr Yan, a few things that I really like about him. Incredibly nimble, quick. Watch the first fight against Uriah Faber. Watch the Dodson fight. Watch the Jimmy Rivera fight. Watch the Douglas Silva de Andrade fight. That's the fight where I think you see him turn the corner. He's able to put everything together, but he gains intelligence. He reads fighters during the first round, and then the second round, he will come at you and unload the kitchen sink. And he does it in a methodical way where he lures you to come out of your shell. And I expect him to do that. By the way, I'm going to be picking Petr Yan to get this fight done in the later rounds. Okay, I expect him to win that fight. I'm going to revert back to one fight that is a hotly debated contest that we didn't touch on, but we are going to get to it right now. We've got Zhalgas-Zhumagulov taking on Raulian-Paiva. Raulian-Paiva, 19-3 record, 8,700 in DK, minus 170 favorite. I'll be honest, I think that line also is a little bit wide here. Zhumagulov, 31 years old, 7,500 plus 140 underdog. 13-3 record for Zhumagulov. Zhumagulov, battle-tested, fought significant competition on the Russian scene. He's been in a lot of pressure cookers. He has 6 knockout victories. You push him, and he will respond. What he does typically lures you into corners. He lures you into thinking that he is like a cornered animal, and then he responds. And he's got this jump-in uppercut. He's got jump-in hooks. He's very small for the division. And Paiva missed weight here. Paiva is one of these fighters who I've been traditionally very high on. The Kai Kara France fight, you look at him, I mean, he came in with, I believe, like a 19-1 record, something like that, when he came to the UFC, or 18-1 record. And the Kai Kara France fight showed poise, showed a solid gas tank, was able to use his range, looked great on the ground with scrambles. I am expecting a war in this fight. I have not written off Zhumagulov. I honestly think this fight is lined a little off. I think this should be a closely lined fight. The odds when this opened was almost a pick'em here. And Zhumagulov is he's a fiery competitor. You push him and he'll push back. He's been bloodied in other fights and he does not go away. He's got a great gas tank. This is going to be a very competitive fight in my eyes. I'm going to be picking Paiva to get the victory here, but you really have to push me to do that. I don't. I rate Paiva highly as a prospect, but this is a very dangerous fight. That's all I'm saying. It's a very dangerous fight, and it's expected to go to a decision. I expect the later rounds. If Paiva isn't able to get Zhumagulov out of there, I expect Paiva to come back and surprise some people. He's done it in many of his fights, and just when you think you've got him cornered, and that's definitely not a good look when you're considering the judges and how they judge fights. If you would see somebody continuously letting themselves get backed into a corner, and octagon control is a major contributor in how people view fights, that's not a good look. Okay, so give me Paiva to win this fight via a very close decision. All right, let's get very quickly back to Aldo and Yan. You watch Aldo's last fight against Marlon Moraes. This is another case where he let himself fall in love with maintaining octagon control and failed to throw for output. This cut to 135 pounds, it has to take something out of him. This is a guy who, I'll be honest, you see him around, he looks like he should be up walking around at welterweight. He's massive when he's not in camp, and this is a guy who now is committed to a huge lifestyle change, and it does not look healthy one bit. But I think that's gonna cost Aldo in this spot, especially down the stretch. So I'm gonna be picking Peter Yan to win by a late stoppage. But one of the reasons I I've been staying away from this fight is because Aldo, he's very, very live early. Those first couple of rounds, dangerous. And you look at fighters who want to win. You look at fighters who look at how they react after their losses. Jose Aldo, it's the end of the world. It's the end of his life when he loses. Look at the Holloway losses. The one loss that is an anomaly there, though, is the loss to Alex Volkanovski. He just, in Rio, just was outsmarted in that fight by Volkanovski. Incredible. So let's get to that fight now. We've got the 145-pound featherweight strap on the line, where we've got Alex Volkanovski taking on Max Holloway. Max Holloway, 21-5 record, 7,100 in DK. Can you imagine that? What world are we living in where Max Holloway is a 7,100 priced fighter in DraftKings, plus 180 underdog? Then we've got Alex Volkanovski, 9,100, minus 220 favorite. Volkanovski, surprisingly, although he's the much shorter fighter, is coming in with a 2.5-inch reach. We watched this fight. It played out back in February, so this is a quick turnaround where we have Holloway, who was just outsmarted in his throughout 5 rounds. I had it 50-45 for Volkanovski, and so did a judge scoring that fight. I didn't see a 48-47 in that first round, or that first match. This fight, though, this depends on how Holloway approaches things. If he wants to come out and have a firefight and start throwing heavy early and lure Volkanovski into a brawl, I think that's the best way he should go about this, because I watched Volkanovski's fights and Holloway's fights throughout their career, and we've been waiting for someone with the right body type, the right skill set to take advantage of Holloway's wiry frame and lack of physicality. I know he's been able to float on top when he has fighters on the ground. He's able to use his length well, but that comes at a cost, and the cost is lack of strength and the physicality. And also, Holloway has typically a massive cut, 245 pounds. This is a guy who couldn't make the weight against Khabib Nurmagomedov on short notice. Couldn't make 155 pounds. And Volkanovski here In my eyes, you watch this, you watch how it played out the first fight, and Eugene, although he hasn't been in the corner with Volkanovski throughout this camp, I expect Eugene to implement a terrific game plan here, and I could see this fight playing out in a similar fashion to the first fight, though Holloway has to know that the leg kicks could potentially be coming. So it's all a matter of who makes these subtle adjustments. And if Holloway does try to pull those legs back and commits to his punches, I believe that is going to come to a head and be a cost. There's going to be a cost associated with that, because Volkanovski is such an intelligent fighter and has such a great gas tank. And if Volkanovski gets hammered early and gets hurt, that's the only way I honestly see him losing this bout. You watch Holloway's both fights against Jose Aldo, and Aldo was, man, he gave his best effort in both of those fights and just couldn't get it done. The output was what killed Jose Aldo. And Max Holloway, if he wants to give himself the best opportunity at beating Alex Volkanovski, he's going to have to up his output, put himself in danger. And I just think Volkanovski is going to be a little too much here. I was on Volkanovski versus Jeremy Kennedy versus Darren Elkins versus Chad Mendez versus Jose Aldo versus Max Holloway the first time. And I'll be picking Alex Volkanovski to win this fight here. So I'm going to expect Volkanovski to retain that belt, but I'll be honest, I think that line right now, minus 225, minus 230, that is a little wide. You got to show the former champ a little bit more respect than that. All right, so we've got the title fight, main event, 170 pounders, Kamaru Usman against Jorge Masvidal. Masvidal coming in at 7,300 plus 205 underdog, 35-13 record for Jorge Masvidal, 48 pro fights under his belt, 35 years old. That does not stop Jorge Masvidal from coming into this matchup without confidence here. Kamaru Usman, 8,900 minus 255 favorite, 33 years old. We've seen the heavy grappling, life-sucking game plans that Kamaru Usman is able to implement. He is able to slow cook opponents. And that is the path to victory here for Kamaru Usman. Jorge Masvidal is the freest man in the world right now. Just got paid. He's been preparing for this matchup behind the scenes. That's why this line is closing. No loss of confidence against Stephen Thompson, even though while he was outgunned in that fight. Then you look at the Darren Till fight, was losing that fight early and then just landed bombs and put Till out of there. You watch the Askren fight, another situation where he commits to his strikes, and that is a major issue here. If Kamaru Usman fell in love with his hands at all, Trevor Whitman has to get in his head and say, you know what, you cannot strike with this guy at all. Stay away from the striking, clinch up, put Masvidal on his ass, and hold him there and pepper him. And anytime he tries to get up, you latch onto him and you take him back down. And that has to be rinse and repeat for 25 minutes. If Usman fails to do that, Masvidal is very, very dangerous. And you look at the weigh-ins here. I mean, Usman is massive for the division. And he has so many advantages over Masvidal. You look at stylistic nightmares, and Masvidal has said it himself in the countdowns and in the interviews. I know I'm a horrible, this is a bad stylistic fight for me. But he's got tremendous confidence. He's been in there with Dustin Poirier, and I understand why people see Masvidal as a live dog. He's put people's lights out, and he could potentially do it here in this spot. But more often than not. I think you look at the implied probability here, and I think we see Kamaru Usman winning this fight much more often than Jorge Masvidal. I'll be picking Kamaru Usman to win here. I think he has over 5 rounds. The opportunity to put up a huge DraftKings score. That's if he is able to, and what he should do is just stick to Masvidal like glue. But I understand Masvidal, live dog, street Jesus, coming in here with a head of steam. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to wish you a tremendous fight day. I want to thank BetDSI, MMA Oddsbreaker, for doing their thing and helping host the podcast here. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at MikesMMAPicks. You can also check out my premium plays at MMA Oddsbreaker, and I'm also at BetMMA.tips. So go get what's yours, my friends. This is what we've been waiting for. Fight Island, baby. Fight Island. We're here. Your time.